Lining up the cage of the derailleur with the chainring guard. Most cases it's actually going to be lined up with the outer chainring. Yeah, I do not know about that. I guess we'll find out. Next, get some whales put together. Because these are Mavic whales, they require their own special spacer, which goes underneath of the cassette. Now, the cool thing about that is, we always thought it was kind of an engineering fuck-up on the Mavic's part, because the hubs have been like that for about 1,000,000 trillion years. But the joke's on everyone else, because people who owned like Shimano or anyone else, when it went to 11 speed, they had to get new hubs, or at the very minimum a new free hub body, and all Mavic users had to do was take that spacer off. So that's pretty cool. I should mention also that Campy didn't, I think that when they went from 10 to 11, they didn't change their free hub body either. So, why am I putting these wheels on, you may ask? Well, they're ever present. Oftentimes the rims are fairly worn, so I tend to get them for absolutely free, and then I will use them until the rim is completely worn, and save what I can from them, throw them in the trash. I know, it's a sad world. Abbey Tool Works, Crombie Tool. Mine's special, I guess. He tests stuff on us sometimes, it seems. Different color and sort of new knurling pattern. Anyway, I love these. Friar Quaid over there is a good guy. Highly recommend his products. That'll work. So, you may have, the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that I put an additional spacer behind the wheel. I put the Mavic spacer on, then I put another silver spacer on. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-speed cassette. So, in addition to the Mavic spacer, it requires its own stupid spacer. We gonna do some tires. Good rule of thumb is, even though these probably don't matter if they're directional or not, you can usually find on the sidewall of the tire what rotation direction they need to go in. You'll see it right here. And since we know the direction they need to go in, we maintain that orientation, and let's line the label up with the valve hole. Now, generally speaking, the pattern called the chevron, the little dinkly-doos that are on here, wherever they're pointiest, so this is sort of pointing that way, you would consider to be the front. So when in doubt, point the chevron forward. There are some mountain bike tires, some cross tires, which like to be run backwards depending on the ooh, there's something shaky in the wheel, depending on the use, but for the most part you can just go ahead and do it like that. Let's see, what shall we listen to, guys? Let's listen to Borns. This fella, Borns, has the most amazing voice. I'd kind of lost hope for the future of music, but it is pure pop fantasy. I love it. Give yourself a little air to give the tube form. Now that we have our label as our orientation point for the tube, so we always know where to grab the wheel and what we're working with. It's a lot cooler tonight than it has been recently, so I'm very happy to film this, to spend some time with y'all, and to finally get down to business with this bike. So, oh, one thing I didn't really touch on too much was the fork is not the intended fork for the bike. There's this neat thing you can do where you can actually measure the rake, the trail, and also the axle to crown on forks that don't have the correct wheel size, and you can basically fake it. So I measured here to here, which is the axle to crown, measured the rake of the fork and the sort of effective trail, and wouldn't you know it, on an old mountain bike like this, it's goddamn near perfect to do a 700C conversion. Let's pump up the jams. Give myself a little air and check to make sure my tire is seated properly. It's a little dropped right here. There we go. Pretty much don't use caps on my own bikes, so hope that doesn't drive you crazy. Oh yeah, I was gonna do lock-ons. I tend to ride my bike in like fairly high crime areas, so for me personally, bolt-on skewers are a must. And this one is a 4. It's a nice blue color too. That's one wheel. Now we know our orientation. Weird chevron things pointed that way. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and stick the other tire on. I would recommend not using the tire lever for pushing that final little piece of tube over, or tire over. I do it because I'm fucking amazing, and no, I'm just kidding. I do it because I find it to be easier with my old arthritic hands, and I have had so much practice that I pretty much don't pinch flat. But there's a high likelihood that you'll pinch flat if you go ahead and try that yourself. Still, the only way to get good at it is to try it yourself, so, you know, do what you will. Tube valve in. I'm gonna pinch up the tube and make sure that it's actually inside the tire and not squashed in between the tire and the rim. I'm gonna start at the valve and make me feel complete. Oh yeah. What a sweet boy. What a sweet boy this Borns is. So we're gonna keep going, let a little air out, and you know, having said that thing about not pinching tubes, I will 100% pinch a tube now, won't I? Isn't that just how life works? Always, always, always check to make sure your tire is seated properly. Nobody likes getting blown up in the face. Well, some people like getting blown up in the face hole, but not with cold 100 PSI air. So the next question will be, what's the spacing of the frame? I actually haven't measured it yet, so I'm not sure. I would expect that it's either 130 or 135. The bike's old enough that it might be 130, but in the event that it's 135, despite it being made of aluminum, I don't give a shit. It's just gonna get squashed down. We're at 135. So, like I said, I don't give a shit. It'll work just fine. Now, maybe 20 years from now, this might put some undue strain on the frame, But my everyday baby boy, the Cannondale of Horrors, the Warrior 500, it has been going strong, no problemo. You will find it here. It has had a rear wheel where it's squished from 135 to 130 for like 5 years. I ride it so hard. I like tow stuff with it. It's fine. Trust me, y'all, it's fine. Starting to look like a bike a little bit, huh? Make sure we get our spring in there. Give me some spring tension, baby. Baby, baby, come on. Got our bolts. So 2 sets of bolts back there, kind of interesting. These are kind of set it and forget it. Once they're in place, you'll find them very easy to deal with. Checking to make sure they still move. So what do we got up here? We're gonna go for some old thumb shifters. That's why I chose 7-speed for the rear wheel. Ooh, do I even have a chain? Oh my god. I have a chain. Ladies and gentlemen, he's got a chain. That was kind of them. Looks like back in the day they gave you 2 crappy master links. Let's see if they work. You flip to a page, and you flip away. I guess with a video like this, the main thing I'm trying to expose you to and encourage you to do is build your own bikes. The thing about bikes is they're way simpler than asshole mechanics would have you believe. And many incompatibilities are simply inconveniences during setup, or they are a limiting factor in the performance of the bike. So, for most of you who are just building a bike to get around town, if you're a bike punk or like a student or an, you know, lonely old divorcee living in a shit shack by himself, you're not going to care if it shifts as good as Di2. So here's how I'm sizing my chain. You see back here how the chain is touching the derailleur? I'm going to find the first link that I can connect where it pulls off. And I am in the small and the small, so I'm in little. This is how I size a chain. Works 99% of the time. You'll find that Park Tool, and in fact, several new dictums have come from Shimano on how to size a chain for their new like Dura-A stuff, but typically with most bikes, you're going to be little, and pull until the derailleur straightens out like that. So we're going to cut, I have a master link, so we're going to cut this whole link off right there. These are riveted links, so let's see if I can't use my pliers to do it. Perfect. Perfect. Now, I've never used this type of master link. I'm assuming it's the flex type. Let's see how it works. You should be able to flex the side plates in. Oh yeah, there you go. You see that? So it's keyed there and there. You flex it and then it locks in place. So I'm cross-chained. Shouldn't matter. Let's switch some brake pads around and run some cables. So these rims are fairly narrow. So I'm going to be running the Fat Boys on the inside. By Fat Boys I mean these 2 adjustable washers. You can run them on the inside or the outside. We're going to attempt to run them Fat Boy on the inside and see how that looks. I always drop the washer. Don't laugh at me. Don't you judge me. Oh, come on, weak-ass palsy hands. I get by with a little help from my own hands. These washers are weird, and you may have noticed that they're sort of a cup and ball arrangement. That's to allow the brake pad all of these degrees of adjustability. So, I'm just going to give it the old tentative. I'll lock everything down when we're done. Feels pee good. Yeah. Told you. Now I gotta look on the floor. That'll work. Whatever that is, that'll work. We're switching the rear one so the pads don't come squirting out onto the sidewalk. This one I will drop as well. Only this time I dropped it into my hand. Got these crazy butterfingers tonight. Who am I kidding? Not tonight, always. We're going to set this up back on this side. And we're going to drop some more stuff on the ground. And get covered in either hair or spider webs.